We have to mute.
Well, what about now? Is it good? No, I'm not gonna do that. Hello. It seems better now. Yes. Okay, so let's run with this. Hello, everyone. I'm inviting everyone back to the chairs. Not so many, but some are still empty. Especially on the first rounds. So I'm just, like push people in. Hello, we're starting the second panel. And I see that some people already
Selil, you on the English channel. Please change to the other channel. This is the wrong channel.
Olympics will happen in the garden at 8:30.
Thank
This
you.
is the second panel of. It will be moderated by Nicolo Milanes here. I just want to say that it's a hybrid panel. We are connecting with someone that will be on Zoom. This person will be speaking in Kurdish, and you will hear the interpreter. So let's see that everything flows and works out well. With this, I just pass it to Nicolo. Thank you.
Thanks, Irene. You can tell that this second panel is the revolutionary panel here at the Friday evening program of the Democratic Odyssey. You can tell that because it's starting slightly late. It has various technical challenges, and there are some people with drinks standing around. These are surefire signs of a revolution in our midst. But more seriously, we're super privileged, I think, to have with us people from two crucial struggles that have been going on for some time. On the margins, if you like, or in the center, depending on where you're standing. One joining us online from Rojava, which, as you will all know, is a struggle for independence that's been going on for years. Van Khalid, who was a spokesperson for Congress Star, which is the umbrella women's movement in Rojava, is joining us on Zoom. And there's some technical challenges associated with that, but we are getting through them. And then from slightly closer to Vienna, there we go. Then from slightly closer to Vienna, we've got three students who've flown in from Serbia today, representing the student movement and the plenums in Serbia, which they're going to tell you more about shortly. Yeah. It's really fantastic and important that Vladimir, Christina, and Yelena join us this evening for two reasons. So that we can understand better and show solidarity with these democratic movements, but also because, as I think everybody here knows, the Democratic Odyssey is about bringing about systemic change across Europe, notably by creating a permanent People's Assembly. And in these two examples of democratic movements, the role of assemblies and people coming together to discuss and decide how things should go forward is very important. And in both instances, it's been very innovative, the ways in which this has been done. And so what I'm going to ask our friends from Serbia to tell us about to begin with is precisely why this method of plenum assembly has been chosen in the Serbian movements and how you see its future. I don't know which order you want to speak in. Let's go along the line.
Maybe I can begin. Set up. Okay. Okay, so as I assume you're all familiar with the situation in Serbia and the fact that the direct democracy and direct democratic plenums among the students and assemblies among the citizens are sort of the basis of this movement against corruption and against systemic injustices in our country. So the reason why direct democracy arose as a most important part of this struggle, I think, is because it's very well suited to crisis situations. And, you know, we are facing crisis, not just in Serbia, but, you know, the crisis of democracy across the world and in all, you know, basically all of our societies. So these crisis situations are very prone to direct democratic organization by the citizens themselves, who are feeling oppressed, who are feeling not represented by the dominant forces in power, by the dominant politics, be they, you know, the authoritarian government or even the opposition, which is proving ineffective. So people are starting to take the things in their own hands and organize these assemblies. Yeah, I want to clarify. I want to say that I'm sure you have already, you know, felt that direct democracy is something that needs a lot of dedication and a lot of motivation from everybody involved. So it's not an easy thing to do, and that's why you know, it's perhaps less visible when the situation is peaceful. But when a crisis comes, that's when the people take their destinies in their own hands, and that's why we have chosen this type of struggle, this type of organization. And you know, it's not just because of its symbolic significance or something like that. No, it is actually really effective. It is really effective in gathering support for our movement, but also just in all the things that we have accomplished so far. It is exactly because we have organized in such a way, and not because we have followed you know, other political perhaps more traditionally oriented parties or leaders or such things that are too set in their own ways and too set in sort of some traditional power imbalances to actually make a significant systemic change. This is, of course, it's proven not enough. And direct democracy comes in that moment to sort of broaden the political horizon and to give power to those that have, you know, too long been on the margins and whose voices haven't been heard. So yeah, it's basically something that makes everybody present, everybody is there to decide in their own name and not to you know, wait for somebody else to decide. That's I maybe talked for too long, but I think it has been a okay explanation from me.
Thanks very much. And maybe one of you would like to describe also how the plenums actually work.
I can do that. Oh, okay. Do you see me? Hi. Now I have to speak after this. Okay, great. Well, basically, everything that Vladimir says is true, but in a practical way, in the plenums, in our microcosmos in which we live in our blocked faculties where we sleep and eat and don't study anymore, we need to make some decisions. And basically, before making the decision, we need to discuss two or three rounds before we actually make an informed decision. And in that process, we actually feel like our opinions, our ideas matter, because we are basically found a way to respect each other and hear each other, which is something I think is very rare and difficult in these times. And for me, it meant a lot. It changed me, and I feel so much stronger, and I feel like my voice matters. I mean, that is the change I feel everyone should feel in themselves, and that's why we after a while encouraged our citizens to do something like plenums in their own cities, in their own neighborhoods, yeah. And it's actually great, and they are basically copying us in some way, and the whole idea is to change the perspective on how you can actually be the one who is active in their own life, who is making the decisions about their own life. I don't know if I clarified enough. Do you want to add?
You did a great job. It was a really good answer. Maybe if I could ask you about if you see any challenges to the movement, and maybe what you see as a future of the movement in Serbia.
Okay, so hello. The challenges of the moment. I think that's the whole thing with democracy, and it takes too long. Students are really tired, and in general, people are really tired in Serbia. But I think what is really important that okay, we are requiring systemic changes, and that can take even decades sometimes. But what's really important, and it's really closely connected to the plenums and the organization in cities, when citizens are organizing themselves, is that long-lasting feeling of that you are the one that should decide about its own future. I think the mentality in our country in general is that we always trying to find a leader, and people really want someone else to do something for them, and to give that how do you say that responsibility to someone else. And I think the hard pill to swallow about democracy and the way that we are organized is that you need to be responsible, and you're actually learning to be responsible for small decisions and in general for the way that your neighborhood is going to look tomorrow and later on your country. So I think that awareness and change in mentality of people in Serbia is what's something that's going to stay, because that's not something that wasn't there before this moment. That waking up that we call it, I think that's that you have your future in your hands, and you just need to be aware, because decades and decades of suppression and everything bad that is happening in our country kind of taught people to don't care and close themselves and don't think with their own head and just let someone else do things for them. And I think now is the moment we are actually responsible for what's happening, what's been happening for decades, and now we need to be responsible for this change. So I think that's the biggest thing that's going to come out from this moment.
I think it's 6 months already that the movement is going. Do you foresee that the plenums and other forms of organization will remain in the future, independently of what happens in politics? Or is there a danger that it all collapses? Is there a risk that a new leader comes and the citizens suddenly become disengaged again? So how permanent do you think the plenums are or should be?
So I can definitely speak in the name of us three when I say that we want to make them permanent and to make them sort of maybe even institutionalized in a way. If it's actually going to live up to that expectation remains to be seen, because everything that we are currently doing, it depends on practice and on the people who are actively engaged and actively participating. So as long as there are interested people and people who want the change to keep going, the plenums are going to stay. And I personally and honestly believe that they are here to stay.
Great. Well, I'm going to endeavor to run this in a way that leaves lots of time for exchange. I want to see if we can bring in Berivan from Rojava to ask how are assemblies and democratic practices crucial to the struggle in Rojava, and perhaps also in particular from a feminist point of view? How does this empower women and others that may not be empowered in other ways?
الإكسباس بله دنگمتی از سپاس دیگه مش بو به درفته و به خواندنی گو امجی ببن بجداری ببن گو به فستیوالی گم تجربه خو و تشتی گو شورشا باکور و روجلات سوری شورشا جنین روجاوای کردستان گو هاتیل درخسن ام بوارو حضور بارغا بکن من لتجربة بريان هاجي قدار كر ام نكردوري هذن ل تشتكي ترجودا هي لروجافا لشورشا جنيا روجافا كردستاني جو دوی شورشه ده دوی نمونه ده جن پیشنگتیه ده کن نتنید آستا کمونو مجلسا ده همی قادن هیه ده ایرو روش جنا باکر و روجلات سوری پیشنگتیه جنا کرد پیشنگتی جی همی جنین هیه ده که شورشه لدار دخینم شخوا هگر تیزانین گو بسالان شورشه روجاوای کردستان لدار کتیه جه 2012 ده گاوا چروسکن شورشه بخارا گلان اگو تناس کرن بناوی بخارا گلان گهش سوری و گشت باکر و روجلات سوری ده 19 تیرمه هیده 19 تموز ده 2012 ده اف شورش چروسکه های گیا باکر و روجلات سوری گیا روجاوای کردستان جنا باکر و روجلات سوری پیشنگتیا جنا کرد پیشنگتیا وی شورشه کرد و شورش خوال دارخص و تحمی قضاد جی خواه کرد لی بریاوی شورشه جی جن روجاوای کردستانی خبری خستن دکر لی برنگه کی دوزیج برگو سیستمین دستلادار هاو در فت ندا نجن و نجواق بگشتی جی گو خبری خستن بکه و سیستمی کی خواه آوا بکه جی 2015 ده جن لباکر و روجلات سوری سیستمی خواه آوا کر بناوی یکی تیاستار 2015 ببورین 2015 ده 15 ماهایی که 2015 کنگره خال درخص برنگه کی دزیج برگو سیستما بعثین سر حکم بو و درفت نداگو خبری خستن بکن او کنگره هات درخستن او کنگره جی بو بنگه کی گو جن بگشتی خبری خستن بکن حتی گم بگن وقتا شورشه 19 تیرمه 2012 شقاب هاتنا شورشه ده جن بری بری خستن کری بو جی بنگه کی هبو لیدی صبر خو بیتر فرح که وجهش يعني هودان هكيرجو حمي جنادنا وفحميز بك وجواكي بري أجبو وقتيج برجو وقتا من أسبوعهم قلب بينج حفظ دقة كرنا بلى تمام دو 2012 جابا شورش الداركت جن خواستن خو بيجين حمي جنا رخصنا جن طبعا تفجراجن سروي أساسي كونغري خواني دل دارخست وخبر فرحكر جي كونغرا يكي تيا ستار شو كونغرا ستار دارخست يعني نافي خوجي جوهرت و سيستما خوني اندرين جهات جوهرتن بري يكي تيا ستار بو بشتي شورشي خبر فرحكر نافي خواكر كونغرا ستار دويدة حميجن دنافا خود حميسكر كرد عرب سوريان تركمان چركس تجنن دنافا باكر و روجلات سوري جي خود گره وسر أساسي 12 قومتا خو بريخستن كر باش ولا تمام تمام. كوميتي بجي بخوازن بجميرين كوميتين أبورينن جبوجو جندنا أبوريد خبري خصمك كوميتا أكولوجية كوميتا جينولوجية جبرجو تيجتي حري جرينج دشورا شاروج آباد جنين باكرو روجلاتي سوري سر زانستا جن خبري خصنكر أو جبنافي جينولوجي يادنجي كوميتين تشاندينن كوميتين برورده وأكاديميانن كوميتين تدرسينن كوميتين هنرينن يعني راكاندنه مالية يعني سر أساس دوازده كوميتا خبري خصنكرن باراستنتين هي حمي كوميتي جو على قدر بقادنج يعني وخبري خصنكر دوان كوميتاد جنجي خواد حمي قادانجر يا حري جرينجي جبو برسوان دنافا كومين ومجالسات جي قاقرت أبصر أستا رخصنين كونغراسار بتايبن لي بكشتي وجنين باكورو روجلاتي سوري دهاتنا شورشا باكورو روجلاتي سوري جا سريح لداهم بري سيستما دسلاداري هي سيستما رجيما بعسيا هات الوشاندن قال لك دسكفتي أفراندن ده نافرا بيش سالين شورشي ده جدو حزار وبوازده حتى إيروروج يعني زيدي 14 سالان خبري خستن كر غيري رخصن آواکرنا رخصن و سازی و دستگاه جن گلک سیستم هاتن رو نشتاندن دنا و باکرو روشلاتی سوری یک جه سیستم هفسروکاتی یا گود همی سازی و پارتی و رخصنین هیده هات رو نشتاندن ایرو روش ده باکرو روشلاتی سوری سیستم هفسروکاتی جو کومین و مجلس ده حتى أصلا هفسروكين باكورو رجلاتي سوري جن جي خوتي دقري وجي خوني ده بريارة جي تيقرتن ده حمي قادان جي ده أصلا هفسروكاتي ده جن بريفت به ده عيني وقتي ده زاغونك هات يعني زاغونك تايبت جبو جن بناوي زاغونا مال باتي اللي باكورو رجلاتي سوري هات أريكرن ده علي ريفا بريا خسر ده أو جي قريداي ماف ومسيونين جن جوازي داتر يعني تشتي حري جرينج جنا باكرو روجلاتي سوري حمي برغالينغو قبول نتكرنغو جن جي خواتيت بقرد حمي قادادة يعني هشمنديها جواكي بري اللي جن د شورش ده اف هشمنديه الوشان وده حمي قادادة جي خوغرد هنا قاد هابون تاني هاتو بو اريك دار كرن جميرة لدوي شورش ده اف نرين و اف هشمنديها الجوهرتن بتايبت وقادا لشگري يا جرينج او بوغو جن خو بپاريزه جبوه يعني يكيتين باراستنا جن هات آواكرن دو 2013 ده دنيسانا 2013 يكينين باراستنا جن يبهجة هات آواكرن و إيرو أو يكيني پرچاكي أساسي دناوا قصد جي خودگره دعينا وقت ده باراسنا جواكي جي هي جغير يكيني باراسنا جواكي حماية جوهرية أم جيربيجن هيزن باراسنا جواكي أو جي جن جي خواتي دقرة وبرنجي برا أكتيف وبشنك تيجي دقرة ودناضا أصايشة يعني هيزن أولا كاري رخصنا جي جن طيبة جي هي أو جبناوي أولا كاريا جن هيزن أولا كاريا جن يعني وكي من قد حمي قادادة كاريبو جي خوا بقرة هند آلية عسكرية ده هند آلية جواكي ده هند آلية سياسي ده جنا باكرو رجلاتي سوري جي خوا تدقر يا حري جرينج جي قود جغيري قو أم ما قلت يا دي برلمان دي برلمان ريفا بريا خوا سريا هي جني جي خوا تدقر أصلا مناصفة يعني نيف بني بينجي صديدنا إيرو روش برلمان ريفا بريا خسر جي خوا تدقر يادن جي قال لك دسكفتي وصازين جن وقت ما قلت هاد آفاكرن يك جي ده بيستي آدار 2011 يكمين مالا جن هاد ذاكرن لباكرو روشلاتي سوري أو جي رولاويقو ما في جن و برزگريك جن چارة سربك ما في جن بباريزو برزگريك جن جي چارة سربك يادن جي جبو باراستنا جن و تايبت جن جو هر دبن توندی و اشک دنن گندک بناوی جن تایبت هات آواکرن بناوی جنوار گنده جن ج 2017 بنگهوی هات داین و فرمی 2018 25 ماه یازا 2018 هات فکرن يعني دەستکەفتی و سازیên و jin birêve dibin li Bakurê Rojhilatê Sûrî pirin lê pir zehmetî û pir işkence aynı wextê pir zorlame jî hemberî wê tê kirin yani gelek zehmetiyên û têde yani jin hemberî wê tê dîtin heye heta govan destkeftî van saziyê xwe biparêze ji wan zehmetiya zêdetir yek jê bi taybet hişmendiya civakê ya gu li ser wê esasên hişmendiya sîstemên desthilatdar hatibû perwerdekirin gu jin di nava gelek saziya û gelek kara di nayê qebûl kirin ew jî demek hat xwestin heta gu em karibin civakê perwerde bikin û jin rola xwe di nava hemî qada dibigirin ya herî zehmetiyên jin jî jê hebûn yek jê jî mixabin hêza teror Daesh hêza teroriya got di herêmê me de xwebcî kiribûn her wê hêzê êrişî jin dikir û her jî mixabin gelek jin pêşengên şoreşa Rojava bi destê wê hat qetilkirin heta haka jî em
over this period of time in
eger
very
tiştek hebe
difficult
yani
and
tenê
challenging
ji bo
circumstances in
hişmendî
Rojava.
yani
So, of
zehmetên wehî
course,
yek jê
I want the
hişmendiya
Council to
civakê
think
yek jê
about it.
sîstema
But I
desthilatdariyê
also
guhebû
want to allow some dialogue in the room. So I'm sorry to sort of cut you off, but the technology makes it a bit more challenging. What I suggest that we do is that we start up some dialogue, and I've no doubt there'll be plenty of questions about Rojava as well. So maybe to frame this discussion, what I think is of particular interest here is about how democratic structures like assemblies emerge in moments of crisis. That was mentioned in both scenarios. How they manage to maintain themselves and how they can even become kind of institutionalized over time and so make a durable change to the society and the attitudes that are embedded in it. So if we were able to focus discussion on those aspects, I think it would be super. Are there questions or remarks in the room for either our Serbian or our Rojavian friends? I think I see some, yeah.
I have a question for Berivan in Rojava. I'm also Kurdish Austrian living in Vienna since some years. How the peoples in Rojava, the Kurds and the Ashurian, the Arabs who joined together to found this self-autonomy in north of East Syria, how they evaluate this reaction of the West, especially the European Union, to welcome this is radical leader of New Syria, the Ashara in France, in Paris. How you evaluate that? How you evaluate when Trump met Ashara in Riyadh? How you see that the reaction of the European Union? Do you have the feeling you have enough support for your project, for your democratic project in Rojava? And this is one point. Even the Austrian government start to have building relationship with the government in Damascus when the interior minister of Austria visited Damascus just to plan how they deport refugees back to Syria instead of focusing supporting democratic project. At the same time, when the central government of Damascus while making massacres, killing people, the Alawis, the Druze, and the other minorities. How do you evaluate that in the north of Syria and Rojava? Thank you.
Yani ez bersi bidim. Yani نهكا جبو سيستما يعني ريفابريا هي قشام بريفا دبن ريفابريا أحمد الشرع راستي ما ترسين ما جكرها بونو حتى نهاجي هاي جبرقو هشمندية قو أول سر سوري بريفا دبن راستی ما خطریه که بخارتینه یک جه هشمندی بتایبت جبو جن قبول ناکه ما في جن اساس ناگره اساسا رولا جن ند جباكي ند حكومة دبينه دعيني وقت ده بهشمندية جو بريفا دبي او خطرية كجمارة هشمندية جو اول پرست نجات پرست نتو پرست ابايا پر خطرية بخوري تام عكسي وتام عكسي سيستم ما هي وكي ريفابريا خسريا جو ام ايرو روج دناوا باكرو روج لادي سوري ما خبر خصين كري سيرفي سيستمي ابايا ما ترسيا كي جمارتينه ام سر اساسي ديمقراطي وحمي بيك هاتيان نافا خد ام خبر خصندكن ل ايرو روج ريفابريا شام عكسي بيه تاني رنگه که قبول دکه تاني زمانه که تاني شانده که افتر سه که بخارتینیم جبوني زكاتين نافنا تهويج بوه يعني مخابن ما هيفي تكرجو هين زيادتر زختك سر بكرنجو حمي كسان نبخا حميز بك و نبا دستوران هده ما في حمي بيكاتي او حمي بيكاتي جي خطير بكره دي مخابن يروروش تشتكي عكسي ودبه دستورك هاداين حمي بيكاتي جي خطير نجر ودعينه وقتي ده بيكاتيا جي أساس ناقرة وكي تاجوجي أو قتل عامة جود نابا خلقين على ويدو أو ما ترسيكي بسري وخي جراكي راستي موقفك هن خورتر وحسب خاصتنك جهبه لمخابن حتى إيرو رشت بوادر نقولونا يا خوياني كرين يعني تقابل نقولونا هاتي خوياني كرين جبوه دخوازا ما جناف نتاوي جفاك ناف دوي قشتي أو جو يعني پاراستنا گل و مافین گلا اساس بگرتن جبر جواندین هی باشتر.
Dragi Tunti, hvala vam. I come from Serbia, so I have to support you and
Thank
say
you.
thank you because we all support you. I think you were modest when we talk about participation. Not just that you generated one of the biggest protests in Serbian history and you tried to liberate people from fear and generated the people from different backgrounds. You also established that kind of a democracy tool, let's say plenums. So not just the impact that you are using as a tool at your faculty, but I think the impact is broader because nowadays we have people on the local communities in different all around Serbia, but especially on the local level, they all started practicing this public, let's say we call it zbor. So in a way, this kind of a making decisions with democratic tools. So that's something of you're not just liberating from fear and generating the force, enthusiasm for something big that we all hope that will come, but also innovating the something and bringing something that we all hope they will continue to implement. So that's that type of direct democracy. So hvala vam još jednom.
Okay, I was also going to say thank you for all the sacrifices that you've made, which are enormous over the past year. And my question is pretty simple, which is just there was mention of the fact that direct democracy, there's a challenge to it because it's slow. And I wondered if you could speak about that. And if you could also speak about one of the challenges that is currently emerging, which is the financial pressure that's being put on faculty and others working at the university, whether you see this being an enormous obstacle to the solidarity in your movement and the relationship between these plenums and the faculty that support you or would like to support you.
Okay, so I'm working from Commit, and we just organized a citizen parliament in Australia on the topic of media and democracy. And I just wanted to have some more information about the way you work, because what we did was very, very structured. We had 20 citizens gathered on 4 Saturdays on definite topics, and we had a moderation. So I wanted to know how, I'm not sure what you call a plenum, like it's a part of the citizen meeting and it's only in the university. And do you have a moderation? Are people are they just raising their hands and saying something? And or do you have debates? Just want to have more information the way you do it. Thanks.
Michael, go on. Okay. No? Okay, we'll come back to that.
That's the obstacle because sorry, the whole movement and everything that's been going on, we had great amount of challenges. Every day, new information, everything is changing, the new pressure is going on. So when you have this way, this kind of structure that actually takes time, and later on she will explain the amount of time that you need to put into that discussion, into actually making such a great decision about what's going to happen next, how the protest should look like, why the protest needs to have some kind of a goal. And we all kind of need to discuss it, debate it, and actually say, okay, we can vote for something. And that takes time. And it's really tiring. So that's something that in time of crisis, when everything is changing day by day, it's kind of challenging. But I think that motivation for the fight, kind of keeps on that way of functioning. I think if it's actually institutionalized, it will maybe function much better because you will actually have time to discuss some kind of topics and maybe have different modality for crisis situations. But now when everything is crisis, it's kind of hard. It's exhausting, but we'll make it work. Yes.
Your other question is very hard to answer. Our professors stood behind us the whole time, but in March this year, they changed the law and they are now basically without any pay for, I think, 2 months. And it's awful. So it's not the same situation that it was, but we do not want our universities to disappear, to be hurt, by this. That is not our goal. We want to have stable education and we want to study. But this is something that that is probably going to challenge our blockades in a way and maybe even change them. But we are still hopeful and we are still in the process of finding a solution with the faculties, with the professors and everyone. So I cannot give you a more precise answer. But your question was actually something that I wanted to say before. Our plenum is like it is like I don't know, like a parliament. I don't know. Let's say it's a parliament. We call it plenum because it's something because it's direct based on direct democracy, which is actually a process of arriving to a decision together, everyone. And how we actually function in our little communities, that plenum has some different parts. If you were interested in strategy or public relations or creative stuff, because we also need to do that to survive, we have little groups that take a project and then they have a, let's say, suggestion. Everyone needs to discuss about it. And yes, we have moderation and we have rules that we follow. We also, because our plenums are direct democracy and it is based on 3 rules: transparency, publicity, I don't know, okay, public, because everyone needs to be included, and delegation, like everyone is equal, there is no leader. And those rules we all discussed it, we all found a way, and it's constantly changing. We are always changing rules. So I can be a moderator one day, someone else will be, and we are all equal. So I don't know if anyone wants to add something else. No? If that's enough, if you have any more questions, maybe we can get into that.
Yeah, I think you have said everything. I just want to add that, maybe just to clarify, as you know, everything started in universities. So the plenums are what we have in our faculties. That was like the first form of direct democracy that we practiced. And then, so it's spread around from the faculties to local communities. I think that was also your question. So yes, we have the plenums at the faculties, but we also have citizen assemblies in cities, in neighborhoods, in other places.
Great. So there were a few more questions, Michael.
Thank you. I was doing some studies on direct democracy and found out about an initiative in Maribor. And they went to visit and found out something very interesting, that you have a very long tradition in ex-Yugoslavia, or in Yugoslavia, that was actually part of your system. In fact, this gentleman was lamenting that he could only get the comrades to show up at these meetings, and most young people had no visibility on this. So my question for you is, you nodded your head in approval, you know about that. Are you able to kind of tug on those old memories of direct democracy that existed in Yugoslavia to help you with your cause?
Okay. And then there was a question over here, and then we hear about Yugoslavia.
I wanted to ask, how do you imagine a future Serbian democracy? Like, what should that look like structurally and systematically? How do you avoid this abuse of power and this corruption happening in the future? And how would you reform the party system? And also, I'm from Macedonia, and I feel like the mentality and also the politics that you talked about how people are always waiting on somebody else to make a change, and people are unhappy, but nobody wants to do anything about it. This is like a big problem. And also we have like the same issues of corruption and just like dysfunctional system in both countries. What do you think made Serbia take this leap and go out to the streets and protest and actually fight for a change? Because in Macedonia, there have been tragedies similar to what happened in Niš, and protests are starting, but it doesn't feel like the same movement is arising. Thank you.
Very much. So we've got past and future.
So concerning the question about Yugoslavia and the heritage from that period, that's something that I have personally thought a lot about. Of course, we don't belong to the generation that has experienced it, but that's why I kind of have a problem with that. Of course, there is the problem of our mentality and waiting for others to do stuff for us. That's one aspect of it, but there is also this other aspect that gets overlooked, that we actually have a long tradition of the exact opposite of that, which is, for example, in Yugoslavia, it was called the workers' self-management, which is a type of direct democracy. And I think it's not something that consciously shaped our movement, but it's something that we have sort of grown up with the knowledge of it existing, at least, and with some stories from back then. So that we sort of move in that tradition. We move in that area of, I don't know, there's a lot of history, and there's a lot of, connections that we feel to what our fathers or grandfathers experienced. And that's something that's very beautiful. Thank you for mentioning it.
I heard that there is plenum in Macedonia also, but I think it's cooking. Yeah, for us, why took this leap? I believe that this ruling party has made a lot of mistakes in the past years, and people were already very, very angry. But what happened on November 1st in my city, where I was born in, was something so scary that I think was like a fist in the head. Like, you need to wake up. This could have been you. And I don't know. I feel like it was very clear what happened, how it happened, and what's the problem. And that's why everyone was so united. But what surprised me personally was my generation, because I was a part of I used to think that we were not interested in anything. We were just scrolling online and didn't want to do anything about our lives. And then all of a sudden, I meet these young people my age who are smart, who have the initiative, who want to fight. And it was very encouraging and very inspirational to see someone else who feels the same way, who is, I don't know, who wants to change something, who wants to maybe hope for a better future. And that leads me to the first half of your question, which is very hard and hard to answer because I'm a little skeptical, but I don't see a future of that ruling party. I think the future of democracy in Serbia does not have anything to do with that ruling party. And maybe that answers your question on how I see the future of the democracy in Serbia. Yeah.
Great. And did I see that Berivan, would you like to come in?
يعني أجي وأسباز دكم راسي جبو كسين حاضر خوازم بيجم يعني الديمقراطية راست هلبتي تجربة كنها وهم بري قالك يعني زحماتية ورا أم بخوجي بر زحماتية دكشينن نتنج سيستمين داس لادار نتنج هشمن ديا جواكي حتى جي دولة هاور دور دولة هرمي بن نافنا توي بن قالك كاس هنن قالك سيستم هنن قوي سيستمي قبولنا كن سيستم ديمقراطي جبرجو هر جواك فير كرننجو سر دستلاتدارية سر نا ديمقراطية سر نافندية يعني تشتغو تخوازن تثبيت بكنيان جد ماجية جواك ده بنقهوي بكنيان تثبيت بكن هر دخوازن وید نواجبا که دبری خستن بکن جبوی اف نمونه گرکی به پاراستن و گرک برفره ببین سر اصلا نتنی روشلات ناوین اصلا جهانی گشتید سیستم دموکراسی سیستم ناوندی گرک هر ماینده به و به پاراستن به تایبت رولاجن تده جبرگو هر سیستم دستلادار جن باشگوه کرنن جن نهات يعني نقبول كرنن دعيني وقت ده بندس كرنن جبوه هار وجن وكي جواكن ديمقراس جرك ما في وان بباراستن وأف تجربة هي نمونة هي ما يندبب وصار أصلا جهاني قشتي بلا ببه
Very well said, and enabled me to just say what I think most people here know. You don't need to go back to Yugoslavia to find examples of plenums in Bosnia or student occupations in Croatia or colorful revolutions in North Macedonia. The spirit of the uprising and of people coming together moves around, and perhaps it's one of the reasons why it's so important that we support each other as this spirit or spring of democracies shows its flowers in different places. Are there final questions?
I'm Lefteris from Greece, and I don't know if it was mentioned before, I lost a part of the discussion, but in Greece we had an incident like that 2 years ago, I mean, I will just say in some words, we had a train crash, 2 trains crashed, the one with the other, 57 people died, most of them students. Anyway, 2 years ago, 2 years since then, we haven't have a trial, not even a trial. And we have a big student movements. We had the biggest manifestation since, I don't know when, I was not born or whatever, and 1 million people in Athens only. But I mean, we are also like the Serbian student movement and the Greek student movement. I think that in our part, we are really looking at you. But what would you say? Could this be transnational? Could this be collective? Because I see that really the Serbian movement is much, like many steps further than the Greek movement. How could we go in your place? How could we do something collective and make, I mean, you went to Brussels with the bike. What would you say? I mean, really.
Thank you. No, we want the answers. Okay.
Yeah, so actually, yeah, we know about the situation in Greece, and not just in Greece, in Macedonia, Croatia, and other Balkan countries. We had a joint, I mean, not people from our faculty, but there are people from the student movement who organized a joint panel discussion with people from Turkey, Greece, and several other countries in the Balkans about this exact topic, the student movements in our respective countries, and sort of what brings us together, because we have, as we have established, clearly very similar problems, and sort of maybe the solutions can be similar as well. And I'm very happy that this kind of connection is happening already. So I think, well, maybe you're not so much ahead as you think. So we are already in communication, and in sort of something is happening.
Okay, well, I think maybe everybody who's been listening very carefully to this has merited their dinner and some drinks in the garden. So I'd like you all to join me in thanking enormously Vladimir, Yelena, Christina, Berivan for joining us all the way from Rojava. I believe that you can still register to get a armband for food and drink if you would like. The food and drink is outside, and the Democratic Olympics are going to take place at 8:30 in the garden. So take on some food and start to warm up. See you all soon.
Alex, pode botar de bola tava. Salve. Deixa, Alex.